than Steelers general manager Omar Khan. If there's anybody that would know, it would be Steelers general manager Omar Khan, who luckily we happen to have on the phone right now here on You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports. Chris Mack in for Nick Costos. Morning, Omar. How are you? Thank you for making the time.
Chris, how are you? Good to talk to you. How are things going for you?
Fantastic, my friend. I'm not going to lead with the question about which pizza you and McCarthy fought over getting for the draft room. I know you're a pizza aficionado. We'll save that for later. People want to know answers to much more difficult questions, which is Aaron Rodgers in town this weekend, Omar? And will he be back as the Steelers quarterback?
Yeah, I don't know where specifically Aaron is. I can tell you that Aaron and I and Coach and Aaron and Aaron's representative, we've had some good conversations since the season ended and, since Mike got hired. And, it's been positive. But, yeah, I don't know where he is at this moment. We've continued to have conversations, and they're positive. And, we had a good experience with him last year, and, I think he would probably echo the same thing. And, conversations continue.
You guys have seemed to be very comfortable, you, the organization as a whole, Omar, with letting this process play itself out and letting Aaron have his space. What goes into you guys being that comfortable that when it's all said and done, there's a trust that if Aaron ends up anywhere, it will be back in Pittsburgh this fall?
Yeah, I think from the trust standpoint, I think, just based on the conversations that we've all had, I think this, like I mentioned, this was positive with us and him last year. And it's, I think he would tell you that it was positive for him too. We got to know him last year, and, it was cool, and, Aaron's an extremely intelligent person. And I've said this before, pound for pound, one of the toughest people I've ever met. And, it was good. And, from the rest of your question, I'll just say, right now the opportunity to focus on some of these young guys out here and it's what we do. Some of these young guys need developed, and new coaching staff, and a lot going on, a lot of new faces, and there's a lot of situations where people just don't know each other, and this is a great opportunity for us to get to know them and them to get to know who we are.
Steelers general manager Omar Khan with us here on You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports. Chris Mack in for Nick Costos today. I imagine a large part of the reason the organization decided to hire Mike McCarthy, Omar, is because he does have a great track record of working and developing young quarterbacks. So you guys now have the opportunity to work with and develop two young quarterbacks, but you've also got, if Aaron were to come back, a veteran in place who I imagine during training camp and preseason will see some snaps. How do you balance that? Because you've, I think, as an organization and you in your role, tried to balance the desire to continue to compete and contend now while still building for the future. And at a position as important as quarterback, where it's important those young guys get those reps, how do you balance that, assuming Aaron is back?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Obviously, you're limited by what the rules of the collective bargaining agreement allow you to do in the off season, and obviously during training camp. But the coach has experience doing this, and as you mentioned, he has a track record of working with the young guys and veteran guys. And the benefit is, if we have a veteran quarterback like Aaron here, those two guys have history and they know each other. But right now, we're starting our rookie camp today, and coach has the ability to spend some time with Drew, who we drafted. We're excited to have him in the fold, and the last few weeks, Will's been around, and watching these guys work together, it's been pretty cool to watch. I saw Coach McCarthy, was that in 2000? Watch him work with guys like Jake Delhomme and Aaron Brooks, and watch how he helped those guys become better pros. And I've seen how he's been working with Will so far. And hey, today these rookies are here. Today's a great day. You got these rookies. We drafted these guys, and they're here. We can start working with them, helping them become better football players and helping them help us become a better football team. And look, at the end of the day, we're all searching for championships, not only this year, but in the future. So the balancing, there's some balancing you have to do, like your question asked, but we're confident that the rules allow us to do it all.
If Aaron weren't to come back, Omar, would you guys be comfortable going into the season with the three quarterbacks that you have on the roster? Mason Rudolph obviously is a veteran who's been there and has spot started in the past, but then two guys without any NFL snaps on their resume, and Howard and Allar.
Yeah, that'll all shake out. We have Mason Rudolph has been here for a few years, and he's been great. I mean, I'm sure you've gotten to know Chris, got to know Mason through the years, and he's a great teammate. We've been in the playoff with him. We value him as a teammate, and it's how the spring and the summer goes. All that kind of shakes out. And the one thing I learned a long time ago is these things sort of tend to take care of themselves as the process goes on.
Omar Khan, Steelers general manager, with us here on You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports. I have to ask, Omar, because it feels like the league and the Cross-State Eagles may be trolling you guys at this point with the amount of behind-the-scenes footage they have put out behind the whole Makai Lemon thing at 20 and 21. How did that happen? And did you just not expect Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones to deal with a rival to get ahead of you? How did that all play out on Thursday night of the draft?
Yeah, I'll just let me start by saying, we're really excited about our draft class. As I sat back after the draft and we looked at it, and our ability to fill up some needs that we had and acquire really, really good football players. We were excited. And I can tell you about the draft. The draft, regardless of the round, sometimes the draft throws some curveballs at you, and you have to adjust. But when you have a good process and you have a good board, and I love our process, to be honest with you. The way that Andy Weidel and Dan Colbert, we added Tim Gribble and Mark Sadowski and those guys, the jobs that they do. But when you trust that your board and your process, things sort of tend to take care of itself. And they did for us. It was a good draft, really good football players, and we think we got a handful of them.
When that went down the way it did, Omar, did you guys, how deep did the conversations go in the immediate aftermath, those next few seconds or minutes? Did you know that Max Ahanichor, who you drafted out of Arizona State, was, okay, yeah, bang, that's next on the board? Or did you guys talk about sticking at wide receiver? Were there people calling in to see if you wanted to move back? Just how much was going on in those next 8 minutes?
So I'll say, when you're, regardless of the round, you always have a handful of guys that you're prepared, that you're excited about, that you would take with that selection. And, it's no different in round 1 or round 7. And, when things happen, you prepare. When you're on the clock, you pick the player that you feel is the right player for you. Now, those decisions are usually made before you get to the draft. You sort of know who you would take in those situations. And that goes back to the process of trusting your board. If you have feel good about your board and where you have guys positioned, these things take care of itself.
Do you guys feel confident that if you have to move some of your offensive line pieces around, whether it's moving your right tackle, Troy Fautanu, to left so Ahanichor can play it right, or moving Jennings Dunker, the kid from Iowa, beautiful mullet, by the way, to guard from tackle, do you guys feel comfortable about having moving pieces on the offensive line, or would you like to lock in your starting five as early as possible?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I've said this many times. Position flexibility and versatility is always key. At the end of the day, I think we want to have the best combination of players on the football field, and it always helps when you have players that can play different positions. Right, left, guard, tackle, center, guard. When you have that, you're in a good spot, and I think that's where we are. And it's early, Chris. It's early. We haven't put the pads on, and we got to get to Latrobe, which can't wait to get to Latrobe. That's always a great time. I don't know if how much time you spent out there, Chris, but that's an awesome place to be, and a lot of great football happens there. But until we put the pads on, when it comes to those guys in the trenches, we'll see. You have to put the pads on, see where that goes.
Dino's Wings. Obviously, I've been to Latrobe, Omar. But before we let you run, I got to ask the important question here. You guys didn't get to go down and partake in the actual draft, obviously, even though it was in Pittsburgh. You're in the draft room. McCarthy's a Greenfield guy. I know you're a pizza fan. Did you get to make the final call on which pizza was ordered to the war room on draft day? Because I got to think Big Mike had his opinions too.
That's probably the best question you've asked me so far. So I'll just say I do love pizza, and the one thing people never talk about enough about Pittsburgh is how great the pizza is here. There is unbelievable pizza everywhere you go. There's pizza places everywhere, but there's some phenomenal pizzas, and I'll just say him and I have similar opinions when it comes to that. Not always exactly the same, but that's always a good discussion.
Well, the city of Pittsburgh, for what it's worth, for those that haven't been there before or didn't get to see how the draft was pulled off in the city of Pittsburgh, I'll just say the city, the organization, the league all did a phenomenal job, I thought, of pulling off. It was a great showcase for the city, for the organization. And would you guys like to have it back? Is that something you would lobby for, having it in Pittsburgh again soon?
Oh, 100%. It should be here every year. I mean, I can just tell you, what an awesome experience. Chris, did you have friends? Did you make it down there? Did you go down there?
Yeah, I walked down there Friday afternoon before the actual picks got started Friday night. And I'll say this, Omar, it was the cleanest traffic I've ever seen on the Parkway West. And also, it was just a great atmosphere. You had Browns fans, Ravens fans, Raiders fans, Eagles fans, Steelers fans, and I didn't see one disagreement amongst the bunch.
Yeah, so it was awesome. I went down there one morning just to kind of check out the setup. It's pretty unique. Early one morning just so I could get, to experience it. But I got to tell you, man, the cooperation, what a unique example of teamwork, the cooperation between, the league office and the city and state officials and the team here, our staff. I can't tell you how much Art Rooney and Dan Rooney did to get this to Pittsburgh and make it great. And even you include the people in the city, man, the way everybody just kind of came together to make this happen, because Pittsburgh's, Western PA, man, what a great place. And, for us to be able to showcase it to the world and have all millions and millions of people watching, it was great because this is truly special place, great people, as you know. I think you're Baldwin guy, right? You're Baldwin, right? Great people here. And
Omar, I gotta wrap it up, but I want to thank you for taking the time. A couple of yinzers, I knew we'd run long. Thanks for it, and we'll talk again soon. It's You Better You Bet on Westwood One Sports.